Take a look at Perik Yud Tes, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, on 842. Top line on page 842. V'haisa lehem chukas olam. It should be a statue. Yesterday, for those of you who weren't here yesterday, we were talking about the law of the red cow. About the law of the red cow, and that the red cow is is used in the process of purifying people. Somebody who comes into contact with a dead body, and they have to have the ashes of the red cow sprinkled on them, which is considered the most difficult to understand mitzvah in the Torah. So we had mentioned yesterday that Shlomo HaMelech said, "Amarti echkema." There's a verse Shlomo HaMelech says, "I said I would become wise. V'hi rechoka mimeni, but it is distant from me." I said I thought I would become wise, and I see it's distant from me. So there's an interesting question over here. Shlomo HaMelech was the wisest of all men. You know, the famous, probably the most famous story is when the two ladies come to Shlomo HaMelech arguing about the baby. The Nach says, it's a story right out of the Nach. There are two women who are apparently it's not clear from the Nach if they are women who are of ill repute, or if they're just kind of lower level people. It's not clear what the Nach means exactly, but whatever it is, they both gave birth to babies, and one of them at night rolled over and killed the baby. One of them at night rolled over and she killed the baby. So they came to Shlomo the next day, and with the living baby, and they each one told their side of the story. One of them said, "Well, listen, the living one is mine and the dead one is hers." And the living one said, "The living one is mine and the dead one is hers." You know, the one they switched the babies in the middle of the night. The one who killed her baby switched the baby, put it in the bed of the other one. She woke up, she saw a dead baby, and she said, "It's not my baby." And they were, what do you call it? They were arguing about it. So they come to Shlomo HaMelech, and Shlomo HaMelech said, "Okay, listen, it's a tough dilemma. Bring me a sword. We'll cut the baby in half." So one of them said, "Yeah, okay, cut him in half, and she won't have and I won't have." And the other one says, "No, give it to her, give her to her. She'll keep the baby alive and give it to her." Someone said, "That's the mother." The one who wanted the baby to stay alive, even if it meant going to the other woman, that's the mother. And the other one said, "No, cut him in half. I'll have half and half," because the one who's grief-stricken, what she's concerned somebody else has. So Shlomo HaMelech, everybody saw Shlomo HaMelech Paskin. That was his wisdom in order, and everybody saw he's such a wise man, and he could always. He could make any sort of. They actually tell a story about this guy gets engaged to the girl, and there are two women, and each one says, "Well, he's engaged to my daughter, and I'm the future mother-in-law." And the other one says, "No, he's engaged to my daughter, and I'm the future-in-law." So they bring the groom to King Solomon. And Solomon says, "All right, cut him in half." And one says, "No, keep him alive, let her have him." The other one says, "No, cut him in half." Solomon says, "That's the future mother-in-law." Sorry about that, Aaron. What do you call it? I don't know what they're going to take off of Hida Brut or not, but well, so far so good. But the wisdom of Solomon, and he understood everything. The Nach says he understood the conversations of animals, the conversations of trees, the conversations of the shadim, the demons. He understood everything. He knew everything. And then comes along one mitzvah in the Torah. He says, "Amarti echkema." I thought I would become wise. I see it's far from me because I don't understand paradum. I see it's far from me. So. That begs the question. I mean, you understood the whole Torah. You understood every mitzvah. Every mitzvah has a certain rationale to it. Every mitzvah has an idea behind it. Do you remember, gentlemen, were you here when we discussed why analysis of mitzvahs is called tamei mitzvahs? Do you remember we just spoke about that? Did you ever there's something, let's back up a little bit. There's something called a fundamental Torah idea. There's an idea, and the Rambam encourages us to try to understand the mitzvahs to the depth of human wisdom. In other words, we have to do the mitzvahs because God said to do the mitzvahs. But, try to understand. Why should you wear tefillin? Why shouldn't you wear shatnez? Why should you have a mezuzah? Why shouldn't you eat non-kosher food? We have to do it or avoid doing it, but at the end of the day, we're meant to understand why. The study of the rationale of the mitzvahs is called tamei mitzvahs. Remember we once spoke about the irony. What's the Jewish code of law called? Shulchan Aruch, right? The set table, right? And there is no other country. The American Constitution is just called the Constitution. It doesn't say, we don't call the law book of America isn't called, the McDonald's burger. Let's study the McDonald's double burger, right? In Hebrew, in here, our code of law is called the Shulchan Aruch, the set table. I mean, all right, Jews talk about food all the time, but I mean, this is law, What's it got to do with setting a table? Shulchan Aruch, hey, good, let's eat, everybody. Somebody once said that's what Jewish holidays are. The enemies tried to kill us, God helped us survive, let's eat. That's what every Jewish holiday ends up. So what does that mean, as Shulchan Aruch? The answer is that when Moshe Rabbeinu presented the laws to the Jewish people, God said to Moshe Rabbeinu, don't just tell them the law. Lay it out for them like a set table. Set the table. In other words, explain what's behind the law. You don't have a choice, and you have to do it whether you understand it or not. But the more we understand, if you put on tefillin and say, okay, I got a black leather box with parchment inside in God's name, okay, somehow this makes me holy, and you put it on. But if you understand that what you're putting on is a badge, that God has singled you out to put on a badge and wrap it around. Ooh, well, that's something else. I'm wearing a badge, I'm wearing a badge. If you understand that a mezuzah is up on the door, okay, I have to spend $50 on a mezuzah. You understand that the mezuzah is God's name and it protects you and it reminds you of the presence of God in the house everywhere you go. So then it makes it a little more. It makes it more palatable to do the mitzvah. We have to do the mitzvah anyway, but that's the palatability of the mitzvah. So comes along the Torah. The Torah says, you know what? There's something called Tamei HaMitzvahs. Those of you who learn Gemara, when the Gemara says, what's the reason? When the Gemara wants to know what's the reason, what does the Gemara say? Mai taima. What's the taste? Why would you say that? What's the taste behind it? The answer is that God gives us food, and when it comes to eating, why do you eat? Why must we eat?
Survive.
We must eat to survive. On the other hand, God in His infinite kindness gives the food a good taste so that it is more palatable. It's enjoyable to do that which we have to do. That's why it's called Tamei HaMitzvahs. That's why it's called the Shulchan Aruch. That's the association to food. God could have made all food white tofu tasteless. Right? God could have made all food like that. And you have to 3 times a day, you have to eat tofu, tasteless tofu, and for dessert you get Soylent Green. Right? That's what you get 3 times a day. God could have done that. Yet even the thought, it's like, my goodness, life isn't worth living, if you can't enjoy the food. At the end of the day, that's what the laws of the Torah are. So comes along the red cow, and Shlomo HaMelech, who understood the depth of every mitzvah. And he comes along and says, I don't understand this one. Oh, I wanted to become wise and is distant from me. You know what that tells you? It tells you how broad Torah is. If you're missing one chunk, you're way, way, way off the mark. You still have you're nowhere near it. One mitzvah, one little mitzvah. Yeah, you know how much wisdom is in every mitzvah? So if I tell you, well, I'd like to make $1 million, and I'm only $1 away. Okay, if you'd like to make $1 million away, you're not that far away from it. But if you'd like to make $1 billion, and I tell you you're $1 million away from $1 billion, relative to $1 billion, $1 million isn't that much. But objectively, $1 million's a tremendous amount. You're far from wisdom. You're $1 million away from ultimate wisdom. That's what Shlomo HaMelech is saying. Yeah, I got a tremendous amount. I'm a billionaire in wisdom. But if you're a billionaire and you want to become a trillionaire, or whatever it is that goes after $1 billion, I haven't got this problem yet, but whatever it is that goes after, it should happen to me soon. Say amen.
Amen.
But whatever it is that comes after 100 million or a couple 500 million, whatever it is, if you're 100 million away, you're pretty far away. Even though I'm closer than you are because you only got 50 million. Yeah, I may be closer than you. But relative to where we want to both get to, I'm still pretty far away. That's what Shlomo HaMelech says, Amarti echkem v'rechoka mimeni, number one. Number two, Shlomo HaMelech, a commentary say, he actually had a little bit of self-doubt here. Because Shlomo HaMelech said, well, if I can't understand this one, so who said that everything else that I'm understanding is accurate too? Maybe what I think I've understood, if I can't figure this one out, maybe I'm off on the other ones as well. And that puts the whole concept of wisdom in our perspective. You know what the Talmud is called? Called Yam HaTalmud, the sea of the Talmud. Called the Yam HaTalmud, the sea. You're diving into the sea. I want to ask you a question. How big is the Talmud, and who do you think realizes how big it is? You or Rabbi Moshe Feinstein? You or the Chafetz Chaim? Who realizes how big the Talmud is? Right? Yeah, but look, the Chavetz Chaim, I mean, he learned the whole thing, so he says to him, it's small, isn't it? No. When you go diving in the ocean, if you're standing right at the tip of the ocean doesn't look that big. Okay, there's an ocean, it's big, you dive down. When you've been down in the ocean, I don't know if any of you ever done that, or any snorkeling, or any, scuba diving, or anything like that. When you go down there, I mean, there's so much ocean they don't know about. Right? There's so much ocean they don't know about. I think I read that they discovered like 10,000 new species of fish last year alone, something like that. Some ridiculous number, some absolutely ridiculous number. And they don't know. But once you go down, oh my goodness, it gets bigger, it gets bigger, it gets bigger. I didn't even realize how big it is. Sure, because when you look at it from here, you don't realize. Once you get involved, I was, you guys grew up with that Game Boy? Okay, so my kids, I bought my kids a Game Boy. I never liked it. I got dizzy. It was too much movement. And number two, my kids were better at it than me. I never liked games that were better than me. A good game with Daddy is where Daddy wins. So I bought. I get this Game Boy, and they have one of these things. This Game Boy, and one of it is called what's that guy's name? That little Italian kid, Mario. Mario. Yeah. So the little guy, that's Mario. So I mean, so one day I'm fiddling around with the Game Boy, and Mario is moving around over there, and I was horrible at it. And all of a sudden, one day I'm on a streak. And Mario goes through a door. And all of a sudden I hear like that. And then a new screen flashes on. So I called my kid. I think my son was 9 years old. I called him. I was in a panic. I said, what just happened? What just happened? He says, oh, you took him through the door and you went on to the next level. I thought I won. I thought I got him through the door and I'm going to get an award from the president. And he says to me, oh, you just got him through to the next level. I said, well, how many levels are there? He goes, 15. And it's called Mario Worlds. Right? Because once you get involved, in the beginning, it's just like this, all I see is just get to that door. But you can go through the door, it's like, whoa, the door, it doesn't open like this. It opens like this. It opens exponentially. And the more, like what?
Like an Orthodox family.
Like an Orthodox family, yes, it opens exponentially. Correct, that's absolutely true. And listen, small Orthodox family of 12 kids, it's not like that, but once you get to bigger families of 16 or 18, that's a little different. But that's for you, Steve. The what do you call it? It grows exponentially. And also you realize how vast Torah is. Did you ever see they have that thing called magic eye? It's the thing you look at and you look at it, and then you get a three-dimensional picture. If you look at it, what looks like a two-dimensional picture, and you look at it for a while, and all of a sudden it opens up, it turns three-dimensional. You know what I'm talking about? You hold this book up, and you look at it for a while, and all you see is some sort of pattern on it, and you're looking, and you got to get your eyes a certain way, looking, and all of a sudden, and you always hear the same reaction from people. I don't see anything. I don't see. That's amazing. That every single person in the room, that's always the reaction. All of a sudden, you see there's so much more there than you could possibly see. There's always one neb in the room. So, well, I think I see it. No, you don't see it. If you think you don't, no, you'll know when you see it. And all of a sudden it opens up, it's three-dimensional. That's what Torah is, but much bigger. Much, much, much bigger. Much bigger. And when you start getting involved, those of you who've learned Gemara, who've had the guts to open up a Gemara, you go, well, I learned the Gemara, now I learned the Rashi. I know all about it. And then you hear a Tosafos, you go, but if that, right? Also, yeah, but if that's what then all of a sudden you look at all those books on the shelf over there, my goodness, that's an awful lot of Torah. That's an awful lot of Torah, right? And you can't even believe, we haven't even scratched the surface. That's what Shlomo Melech is saying. No matter how much wisdom I have, I see how big it really is. That's idea number one. Idea number two is you get to this concept which we spoke about yesterday, and this is what this pasuk says. On top of page 842. This should be a statute forever. The one who sprinkles the water should wash his clothing because it is impure. The one who touches the water should be impure till the evening. Anything that the impure person touches becomes impure. And anybody else who touches it becomes tamei till evening. So we mentioned yesterday this incredible irony. There's an incredible irony over here of the Parah Aduma carries the characteristic of curing somebody from the severest form of tumei, which is tamei mace. On the other hand, somebody who's not tamei, somebody who's tahor, touches the Parah Aduma water or the Parah Aduma, he becomes tamei. And that's very puzzling. It goes, okay, so we said it by way of analogy, By way of analogy, somebody who needs an injection of a very strong medication. For him, it could cure him, and somebody else, it could make him ill. If you're perfectly healthy, the last thing you need is some sort of steroid or some sort of a powerful medication. But if you're unhealthy, it could be that very thing that gets your body balanced. That's the very thing that balances your body and you feel great. Probably a classic example, a diabetic. A diabetic who needs insulin takes insulin, and then he's going to feel great from the insulin, or he'll be balanced because of the insulin injection. Whereas somebody who doesn't need the injection and he gets the insulin, that could throw him off, right? I mean, but if a little is good, isn't more better? That's the rule in life. No, that's what Paraduma is teaching you. If a little is good, more is not necessarily better. That rule only applies to money. If a little is good, more is better, under all circumstances, usually. But if a little bit is good in life, more is not better. If you put a little sugar into a cake, the cake will be very good. You put too much sugar in, you're going to ruin the cake. And if you put a little bit of love into something, you're involved in something, you're interested in something, you have a hobby, just because there's a difference, there's a line between a hobby and an addiction. Now, I don't like using the word addiction because to me, I'm very much a purist. I feel addiction should be limited to physiological addictions, where there's withdrawal if you don't get it. Right, and so, for example, if somebody doesn't get nicotine or even heroin, there's a physiological addiction. When my credit card is being withdrawn from my wallet by my daughter, there is a very, very strong, a very strong withdrawal syndrome. Right, I scream. But other than that, that's what I call that's purely that in its purest form is what I call an addiction. What's the word you use? It's called an obsession. There's a difference between being involved in a hobby and being obsessed with a hobby. Isn't a little good? Well, a little bit of sports and a little bit of snacking and a little bit of different things that people do could be very good for your balance and equilibrium as a Torah Jew. But a lot in moderation. Now again, moderation is also a very tricky word because the word extremism is also a tricky word. Generally in life, what an extremist is? Somebody who does more or less than you. That's an extremism. That's an extreme. So if I jog a mile every night, that's perfect. If you jog 3 miles a night, that's a bit extreme. And if you don't jog at all, then you're extremely lazy. What I do is absolutely perfect, right? And many people see religion that way as well. If I learn Torah 3 hours a day, that's great. You learn Torah 6 hours, that's a bit extreme. Extreme is always relative to what I think a person should do. Comes along the Torah says to you, you know what? More is not always better, and even in religion it's that way. Because sometimes you get a guy who says, I'm davening, I'm going to daven all day. That's not healthy. That's not balanced. That's not a healthy approach to religion. You get a guy who was not religious, all of a sudden comes into the yeshiva 2 weeks later, he's got payas and a beard and a gartel and the whole thing, and only speaks Aramaic. That's not balanced. That's more is not better. That means he's off balance. That means he's not getting guidance, and he's off balance. That's what the Torah is teaching you over here. Okay. Let's go on now, because this is the next area where one of the most spoken about subjects in the Torah. Take a look at the fourth pasuk on the page, fourth line from the top. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael, on page 842. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael kol ha'ida midbar tzin. The entire congregation comes to the desert of Tzin. I don't know exactly where it is, but it is a desert. B'chodesh harishon. Vayeshev ha'am b'kadesh. The people dwell in a place called Kadesh. Vatamas sham Miriam. Miriam dies. Page 842. Page 842. 5 lines from the top. Vatamas sham Miriam. Miriam dies. Vatikaver sham, and she is buried there. V'lo haya mayim la'eda. There was no water for the congregation. Vayikalu al Moshe Aaron, and they gather against Moshe Aaron in protest. Now, a couple of points over here. First of all, you know that the Jewish people had 3 supernatural daily occurrences that went with them. Number 1 was what? The mun. And whose merit did the mun fall? Close? Moshe. In the merit of Aaron, what was there? The Ananei Kavod, the clouds of glory. And in the merit of Miriam, what was there? The well. Miriam's well, the oasis. It was actually what's that? The clouds of glory that surrounded the Jewish people, what's called the Ananei Kavod. There were 7 clouds. There were 6.
Cartoons, like, clouds fall.
I don't know if they watched cartoons in the clouds, but the what do you call it, the clouds? The Torah itself describes the clouds that rested around the Jewish people, and they were there in the mirror of Aaron. Those clouds, by the way, that's the commemoration of Sukkot.
What do they do though?
The clouds protected them. The clouds, when the Egyptians shot arrows at them, the clouds deflected the arrows. They bounced back against the Egyptians. The clouds, according to some of the midrashim, the clouds, they walked on the clouds. The clouds kept them protected. Their clothes did not. What do you call it? There was no environmental effect on their clothing because the clouds kept. It was like air conditioning. It's just like Or Sameach. That's exactly what it was. The Or Sameach lunchroom was mun, right? And the clouds was what do you call it? The clouds is the environment, and the water. There's plenty of water here. So that's what it said. That's what the Medrash. Hold for a few minutes. That's what the Medrash says. Now, the clouds of glory. By the way, that's why we do. That's when we build the sukkah. The physical sukkahs that we build, there's one opinion that's a commemoration of the clouds of glory. And that's why sukkah is called, the sukkah that we build is called the holiday of Aaron. Did you know that sukkah is called the holiday of Aaron? Because it commemorates the clouds that were there in the merit of Aaron. So you want to know what that really means? I'll tell you what that really means, what the idea is. What do we say in the davening? We say, Ufros aleinu, those of you who daven on Friday night, Ufros aleinu sukkah shlemecha, spread over us the sukkah of shalom, the sukkah of peace. Right? That's what we say in the davening. Now, what was Aaron known for? Peace. Aaron was the peacemaker. He was the Ohev Shalom v'Rodev Shalom. He went around making peace between husbands and wives, between sparring partners, people who were fighting, and whatever. Aaron was the peacemaker. Sukkot, it makes peace among the Jewish people. You know what the idea of the sukkah is? What causes any sort of unpleasantness among people? I don't say it's the only cause. One of the causes that causes unpleasant people is economic difference. We're the upper class. We don't hang with the lower class, and we don't even let them into our kiddush club. There's economic differences between people. And what Sukkot is you know what? You and me, we're all in the same flimsy house right now for 7 days. There are no differences between us, number one. That's a symbolic of breaking down that adversity that comes about from economic differences. Number two, the sukkah, how many walls do you need minimum for a sukkah? 3 walls. We build 4 because it's just more convenient. But really, according to halacha, you only need 3 walls to make a sukkah. You know what that really means, 3 walls? What is it? What's the idea behind building? You need 3 walls. A sukkah, 3 walls for a week. You know what that means? What's that? Everyone's welcome, and everybody can see everybody else. Normally, I'm in my house, you're in your house. We don't have that much interaction. Everybody's busy. All 4 open walls represents the idea we're open to each other. That's all peace. It's all the same. It's all the same theme. I just told the guys yesterday. Hold for a few minutes. I told the guys yesterday. I had a guy when I was in Bnei Akiva, growing up. I had a counselor in Bnei Akiva who was he was the all-American kid. He was nice looking. He was a great athlete, a great student. He was nice. I'm not talking about myself, by the way. He had all the quality. Great guy, and he was going out. He was dating one of the girls in Bnei Akiva. He was an orphan. He was an orphan. Did not have a father. His mother and his sister were poor as shul mice. They weren't even religious, and he became religious. And he was going out with this girl. His father was one of the richest men in Chicago. And, there was a lot of discussion whether or not the old man was going to allow this because, money marries money. But she was a very strong girl, and it was one of our standard debates whether or not she would elope if the father said no. So in the end of the day, he didn't say no, and this guy is now very rich himself. But normally it doesn't work like that. Money goes to money, and people, there's economic class, economic differences. That's what the sukkah represents. Now, I want to tell you something remarkable. Where do clouds come from? Vapor, condensation. So you know what one of the commentary says? You know why the clouds are associated with Aaron? Aaron, this is what you're asking. Where are these clouds from? What are the purpose of these clouds? One of the commentaries says, when Jews are speaking, when you speak, vapor comes out of your mouth. When 2 Jews speak peacefully to each other, that vapor creates the clouds of glory. That's what the commentary says. You know what that really means? You know what he's telling you? I don't think he means that on a literal level. What he means is, what is the function of the clouds? The clouds protect us from our enemies. The Jews are protected by these clouds. You know what he's saying? If Jews would get along with each other, that's the ultimate protection. The influence of having clouds that protect us because Jews get along, that's attributed directly to Aaron HaKohen. Number one. Mun fell because of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, in his merit, the mun began falling. When Aaron died and Miriam died, then the cloud and the well came back in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu. But up until that point, it was in the merit of Miriam and Aaron. How do we know? Because they left for a certain amount of time, then came back in order to show they were here because of them. Now they're here because of Moshe. The water was there because of Miriam. I want you to see, you have to look in the Chumash. If you don't have it, make sure you see the words inside. Take a look at that pasuk again, pasuk Aleph on page 842. Four lines from the bottom on page 842. If you find it, please show the person next to you. On page 842, I want you to see something inside. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael kol ha'eda midbar tzin. The entire people come to the desert, b'chodesh harishon v'yeshav mikodesh. Vatamas sham Miriam. Miriam dies. Vatikaver sham. She's buried. Look at the very next pasuk. V'lo hayam mayim la'eda. There was no water. I want you to take a look at Miriam's name, by the way. Take a look at Miriam's name. What do you see? What do you see in the name Miriam? Yam. Take a look at the first letter. Mem. Take out the resh. What have you got in the name Miriam? Mayim. That's where the water is. The water's in Miriam. The water's in Miriam. Miriam dies, the water disappears. Miriam dies, the water disappears. Okay, the resh is left over there. You know what the word resh means in Hebrew? You know what a resh is? A rush. You know what a rush, resh? I don't mean a rush. I mean a rush, like, shotgunning beer. I mean a rush. You know what a rush is? A resh or rush is an impoverished person. When Miriam dies, what goes? The water goes. What's left? Just the resh. They're impoverished of water. Only the resh is left. Now they need water. Miriam, the water is there in the merit of Miriam. Now, what happens? There was no water to drink. Before I go on, I want you to see a very technical point, gentlemen. This is something that's often overlooked by people who have been studying Torah their entire life. Last week's parsha was what? Korach. What year of the travels in the desert was Korach? It was the second year. Second year in the desert. Miriam dies. What year did she die in? The 40th year. We just skipped from the second year to the 40th year, and the Torah doesn't say anything about what happened in the 38 subsequent years. In the interim 38 years, the Torah doesn't mention a word. There's the Torah, everything you see in the big blue book is the first year in the desert, the second year in the desert, and the 40th year in the desert. Nothing else is reported.
Nothing really happened.
Nothing really happened except 38 years of wandering the desert. So the people who are wandering the desert would say, yeah, a lot happened. But especially when they're having 6 kids for each birth, and then you got to raise 36 kids. And I'd say a lot happens. But if you just raise 5 kids in one evening, you'd see that a lot happens. So when you're raising 36 kids for 38 years, a lot happened. But the Torah doesn't report it. What do you mean by nothing happens?
No significant.
Yes, excellent. Nothing that we need to know. Because if we needed to know it, the Torah would have told us. The Torah is here to teach us. The Torah comes from the Hebrew word. The word Torah comes from the Hebrew word mora, hora'ah. Teaching, instruction. And if we needed to know it, the Torah would have been the first to tell us. And therefore, nothing happened that we need to know about. Now we're in the 40th year. Miriam dies, there's no water. What's the Jewish people's reaction? Vayikalu Moshe al Aaron. They gather on Moshe and Aaron. Vayorav ha'am Moshe. The people start fighting with Moshe. Vayomru Yorev, fighting. How does the article translate? Probably quarreling. They quarreled. Oh, good. People quarrel with Moshe. Fighting implies a physical fight. Oh, we wish we would have died. Why do you got to bring us out to the desert to die of thirst? Dying of thirst apparently is really bad. Dying of thirst apparently is really bad. I think death in general is not great, but dying of thirst apparently is a horrible way to go. And they come to the people. Now, the Jewish people are constantly labeled as a bunch of complainers, a bunch of kvetchers, and a bunch of, constantly. It's all you see in the Torah. They're always complaining with Moshe Rabbeinu. But having told you what I told you, and we skipped 38 years, had they complained sometime during their 38 years, we would have been told about it. Which means that between year 1, 2, and 40, how many complaints were there? 10 complaints. And what were they complaining about? Just little things. We're dying of thirst. I'd say that's a legitimate complaint. That's a fairly legitimate complaint. 10 times in 40 years? Ask any rabbi of a pulpit, any rabbi of a shul, would you take a position as a rabbi if you knew your congregation would only complain 10 times in 40 years?
I
Take the position. He would take the position. He would pay for such a position. Are you kidding? Most rabbis get 40 complaints every 10 minutes, not 10 complaints in 40 years. Can you imagine the Jewish people? 10 complaints in 40 years? I mean, that's remarkable. I don't know any shul like that. I don't know any shul like that, which tells you that, what the Torah shows you, we have to keep it in proper perspective. We're walking around, what a bunch of kvetches. That's why my grandpa's like that. No, that's not at all. These Jewish people are not a bunch of kvetchers. To the contrary. And when they do complain, it's because they don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have something. Oh, that's a lot different. So what happens? Look what God says to Moshe Rabbeinu. Skip down to 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe lemor. God says to Moshe, Kach es hamata, take the staff, v'hakel es ha'ida ata v'anachicha, gather the people, v'dibartem el ha'sela le'enem, speak to the rock, v'nosan meimov, it'll give its water, v'otzei lem mayim min ha'sela, you'll produce water from the rock, v'ishkisa es ha'ida v'ezbiram, and you will give water to the people and to their animals. Now, 2 points here right off the bat. Everybody knows that this was where Moshe, hold all questions for the time being. This is where Moshe Rabbeinu, this is his Achilles heel, right? God says, hit the rock, Moshe Rabbeinu, speak to the rock. Moshe Rabbeinu says, he hits the rock, water comes out anyway, which is not a bad trick, by the way. If you can hit a rock and produce water, it's not bad. And Moshe Rabbeinu is criticized for, you didn't sanctify my name in front of the Jewish people. What's going on here? What's going on here? That's what the story is going to be over here. What's really going on? Now, if you remember, the first time that the rock was involved back in the book of Shmos, the Jewish people needed water. What did God say? Hit the rock. And out comes the water. Here, God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, speak to the rock. And Moshe Rabbeinu hits the rock. So the first thing the commentaries do, and there are many, many different, this is possibly, if not the most spoken about section of the Torah, it's one of the most spoken about. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu, what exactly was his mistake? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu also doesn't obey God? What's going on here? So there's one opinion among the commentaries that, imagine a husband comes home and she says, Chaim was out of control today. He glued his sister to the wall. He spilled milk at the table on purpose. The principal called and said he was horrible at school. I would like you to take your strap and speak to him. What do you think the mother meant by that? A little bit of strap language. Okay, take your strap and speak to him. If I'm going to speak to him, I don't need the strap, right? Well, there's what's called strap language, right? Take your strap and speak to him. By the way, gentlemen, parenthetically, you never need straps on kids. You don't need straps. You don't need paddles. You don't need any cigarettes. You don't need anything. You don't need to hit kids. Your goal in hitting a kid is not to inflict pain. Your goal in hitting a kid is to inflict, and potching a kid is to inflict disapproval, not to inflict. You don't need a strap. Kids are humiliated enough just being potched. The only time you need that the kid should actually feel the potch is when the kids are very young and they do something dangerous. So if a 2-year-old or 3-year-old walks into the street, when you tell him not to walk into the street, then you got to give him a potch that he actually makes the association with the street. That every time he sees a street, he goes, oh, street, and he does like that because he had an unpleasant experience with the street. And you have to potch him because he's got to know he can't play around over there. Kids start and play with electricity or fire or something else. You got to give him a potch that stings enough that he makes an association with walking into my son was 3 years old when I took him outside, and he's standing right by the curb. And he knew he's not allowed to walk, and he just looked at me, and he really quickly put his foot off the curb into the street, just to test daddy. So I took him into the house. I gave him a good potching, right? He hasn't gone into the street since. Now he's 24. Right? So you have to what do you go? You have to know that those are. But when you're disciplining a kid, you're not trying to inflict pain. You're trying to inflict disapproval. Having said that, let's say the mother says, "Take the strap and speak to the kid." If the father takes the strap and then he belts the kid with the strap, right? And the mother says, "No, I meant to speak to him." You can't blame the father if he mixed up the instructions, right? Look what God said to Moshe Rabbeinu: "Take the staff and speak to the rock." Well, how do you speak rock? I don't know what language rocks speak. And not only that, the first time you told me to do this, you told me to hit the rock. So if you tell me, take the staff and hit the rock and speak to the rock, I guess you meant rock language. And rocks understand. Boom, that's the language they understand. So there are commentaries that say just in the instruction alone, Moshe Rabbeinu got confused. Number one. Number two, what's the difference really between hitting and speaking? Well, this is the more fundamental principle. What's the difference between hitting and speaking? Both are pretty impressive, right?
One's
Both.
physical, one's spiritual.
One is physical, one we'll call it non-physical. What's the difference if it's physical and non-physical? the more physical it is, if you watch a magic performance, the less the guy is touching the thing, even though you know it's all an illusion, it's a deception. The less the performer touches anything, the more impressed you are. Once those hands get involved, these guys are so good and so quick, and who knows what they're doing. Once the hands get involved, it reduces it a little. It's still much better than anything I could do or you could do. But whatever it is that he's doing, it's much more impressive. He would stand across the room and say, okay, move, picture. And the picture starts moving around the room. That's much more impressive than he says, hey, everybody, watch this, and he manipulates something. Because in my own mind, I know intellectually, I don't know what he's doing. At a faith level, what's more impressive? When you make an effort and get results, or you make no effort at all, right? So if we make an effort, let's say the Israeli army, they made an effort, they destroyed the Egyptian Air Force in the 1967 war, and we understand it's a miracle because at the end of the day, why were they on the ground? Why were all their planes on the ground? Why were they taking a tea break? So at the end of the day, okay, but there was a certain physical effort that was made, and in our own mind that confuses us a little bit. Well, maybe it's because of the human endeavor. Maybe it's the human end of it that brought it about. Whereas if everybody was lying in bed and all of the Egyptian planes would have just mysteriously blown up overnight without any place, everybody, whoa, man, that's neat. Nobody, then we're really impressed. That must have been the hand of God. The Jewish people are about to go into the land of Israel. What level of faith do you have to be on? Those of you who've ever lived in Israel, you know that in living in Israel, you got to be on a very high level of faith. Israel was a fun country to live in. They had the Kinneret water level. The Kinneret is the main body of water in Israel. So probably about 10, 15 years ago, the Kinneret water level has what's called the red line. And the water level was dropping very close to the Kinneret water, the red line, which is the danger line in the Kinneret, because we had drought for about 4 or 5 years straight. So they had the Minister of Agriculture of Israel on a live broadcast, and they said to him, sir, what are you going to do if the water hits the red line? And he said, it's not a problem, on a live broadcast and in what's considered a first world country. It's not a problem, we will erase the red line and draw it lower. Right? He said that on a live broadcast. And when you live in Israel long enough, you just go, oh, okay. Because you're just so used to these things, So, they have the currency in Israel is called what, gentlemen? The new Israeli shekel. The new Israeli shekel. The new Israeli shekel tells you that there was an old Israeli shekel. Well, you know what happened to the old Israeli shekel? It got to 1,000. And inflation was so high that they had the shekel note. The shekel kept going up. They were printing a note. So they cured the problem. You know how they cured the problem? They knocked off 3 zeros and just reprinted the money and called it the new shekel. Now, any economist, basic level economy will tell you that does not work. That can't work. It doesn't work. Last one out, lock the country. That's what any economist will tell you. Here we are. Here we are. There we got the new Israeli shekel. You're spending it. There you go. Monopoly money. Okay. But the country's working because it doesn't work on natural law. To live in Israel, I was once in a cab. So the cab driver looked at me and I was listening to news reports, whatever's going on. And the cab driver says, tell me, what's going to be in 20 years? What's going to be here in 20 years? Everything was down, everything in the economy, employment, everything. What's going to be in 20 years? So I started chuckling. He says, what are you laughing about? I said, because 20 years ago, they were asking the same question. They said, what's going to be in 20 years? And here we are. We are the answer to what they asked 20 years ago. So 20 years from now, it'll also work. The economy, security, whatever it is, it'll work. Because none of it matters. None of it works by natural law anyway. The world hates you. Everything's wrong. But we're still here. Baruch Hashem. To live in Israel, you need a high level of faith. The Jewish people were meant to go into the land of Israel now. 40th year. You're about to go into the land, and they will go into the land. What do you need to live in the land of Israel? You need to step up to a new level of faith. And in order to go to that level of faith, God says, okay, here's a final demonstration. I want you to speak to the rock, as Binyamin said. Speaking to the rock is a higher level of faith. There's no human initiative in hitting it. Stand there and talk and watch the water come out. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, you know what? These people aren't ready for that yet. If people could come over to me and they could start quarreling with it, what are we going to drink? Oh, you're not on the level you got to be to go into the land of Israel. It's not going to work. I have no choice but to hit the rock. That's also impressive. That's the level you're on. For that, Moshe Rabbeinu is taken to task. You were given an order, do it my way. You made a calculation, which is always the problem in life. You make again, Moshe Rabbeinu, we're talking about at his level. Moshe Rabbeinu makes a calculation. The people aren't on a high enough level yet. I can't speak to the rock. They won't appreciate it. They're not holding by that yet. He hits the rock. That's why he's taken to task. And that's why God says, you're not going to lead the Jewish people into the land of Israel. You're going to stay in the desert. You're going to die over here. The Jewish people are going to go in. Yeshua is going to take them in. Go ahead, question.
Why would Hashem tell him to bring the staff? What was the point of the staff?
Excellent, excellent. So there are two, it's an excellent question. Very good. Why would he mislead him? The answer is like this. It's a twofold answer. It's a very good question. Answer number one is every time Moshe Rabbeinu did a miracle, he had the staff with him. The staff is a sign that he is being sent by God. Okay? But it still doesn't answer the question. Yeah, but why didn't God make the instructions clearer? So there is an idea that even a prophet who receives a prophecy has to have, and this I don't understand exactly how it works, but the prophet himself, when he receives a prophecy, in some sort of unclear, there's something ambiguous in the prophecy, and to the degree of his level of deserving is how he unravels it, and he has to, and what's his challenge at that moment? Your challenge is unravel my prophecy correctly. Get yourself to the level where you unravel the prophecy correctly. That's the test. And so at whatever level Moshe Rabbeinu is confused, that's where he veers off, and that's where God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you're not taking the Jewish people into the land. Okay, somebody else had a question. Steve, what were you going to ask? And then Binyamin, I'll get to you. Oh, yeah.
Before, like way back when, you mentioned that the sukkah has the doors, so that way everybody's open and they can see inside everybody's house. But we know what the story of Bilam and Balak.
It's a symbolic idea. It's just a symbolic idea. It's not literal. That doesn't mean you go peeking into everybody's sukkah. It's just a symbolic idea. You're right, Bilam and Balak. You're right, but I'm right. That's a great way, by the way. That's a great way to end any argument. By the way, it works with wives. It works with wives. Unbelievable. Yeah, you're right, but I'm right. So at the end, it's only a symbolic idea. A symbolic idea. You're right. We're not meant to go around peeking into other people's hearts. It's a symbolic idea that we are open to each other. That's all I'm saying. Not more than that. Not more than that. Yonah, what were you going to ask?
The clouds of Aaron. Didn't they direct the people? Like in the Torah says that when the clouds move.
Yeah, there was also the function. There was to give them direction. Yeah. Binyamin, last question. We have to stop. Go. You were going to ask something before? No? Okay.
No.
Good. All right, everybody.